What's up, beautiful people? Welcome to a brand new episode of the GBA Podcast. This is the place where guilty by association meets gritty, blissful ambiguity. I want to say thank you to all the support and love that I've been getting from you guys. Clearly, we're on a new platform now, and it's a little bit slow, but we're getting there at last. So, I have a guest today with me. He goes by the name of Munir Tawam. He is a Palestinian author, and he actually wrote two amazing books that he will tell us all about in a bit. But first of all, thank you for being here today with us.
Thank you for
Really appreciate it.
First, it's my pleasure to be here.
So, do you mind introducing yourself a little bit? Tell us who you are, what you do, just whatever you want to share, just so people can, get an idea of who you are.
Sure. So, as you mentioned, I'm a Palestinian American, and I was born and raised here in the States, but I also lived a good chunk of my teenage years in Palestine. So, I actually moved to Palestine in June of 2000, so just a few months before the second Intifada, which is the second uprising. So I was there and I was able to witness firsthand experience what it's like to live under occupation and to live under an apartheid state. And, I lived there for about 3 years as a teen, came back here in the States, and I've been advocating for Palestine ever since. And I wrote, as you mentioned, two children's books. The first one was like an homage to my kids. It's for them because I named it Generation Tech in the Four Seasons because, as you know, a lot of our kids today are stuck to their devices. So I wrote it about, them going outside and exploring what the Four Seasons have to offer. And then a good friend of mine by the name of Ramsey reached out to me and asked me, are you planning on writing a book about Palestine? I said, yes, but it's such a complicated topic. Like, where do you start? So then he gave me the idea of, what if you wrote it from the eyes of a little girl growing up in Gaza and just humanize her and let the people know, like, hey, our kids are just like every other kid. They want the same things and they don't want to, because the media does such a great job of making it seem like, well, hey, this is just part of their life. This is the Middle East and this is what they go through. Like, no, the kids in the Middle East have every right to be free and to dream just like every other kid around the world. So that's what sparked the book.
My gosh, you just added 10 million more questions to my list. Thank you very much. So, but let me start with this, right?
Yeah.
You said you moved to Palestine before the second or after the second Intifada?
Before, 3 months before. So June of 2000.
Okay, so we're gonna get there in a sec, but I want you. I always ask this, right? When you grow up in Gaza, when you grow up there, do you even understand, or at what age do you really understand that you're under siege, that this is occupation?
So I'm sorry for the background noise.
Oh, good. I don't hear anything. It's all good.
If you don't hear it, then that's good. So I lived in the West Bank, right?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, no worries. So, the West Bank and Gaza are both occupied.
Exactly.
So, I lived in the West Bank, and it's a good question because it wasn't like my family prepared me for the occupation. It wasn't like they had like a pep talk with me and said, hey, listen, we're going to leave America. We're going to lose a lot of our rights, but it's something we have to do in order to go back home. No, they didn't have that conversation with me. I just had to like look around and experience it and say like, hey, this is different. This is not normal. Right. And I feel like what's weird is I think we underestimate how us humans adapt. So even though everyone there is living under occupation, they can still live their lives and still try to make it work no matter what. I think that says a lot about the resilience of Palestinians, but I think that also says a lot about resilience of humans just in general, because we adapt. So yes, there's checkpoints everywhere. Yes, there's gates and walls, but people are still going to go to work. People are still going to go to school. People are still going to get married. So they don't stop just because there's an occupation.
Wow. I do totally understand that people still obviously make it, because I mean it's everywhere. You go to a poor country and you come from somewhere else and you think like, wow, like look how privileged we are in the West. I have that when I go to Morocco, where I'm from, and I'm like, oh wow, like we're not even grateful for basic things. But especially when you come to a place as a teenager where it's different and you are deprived of so many basic things, do you feel like you understand it in the sense of like, wow, look what I had and now we came here? Like, did you resent your parents for going there?
I did, but not for the reasons you might think.
Okay.
So I was upset because I didn't want to leave my friends behind. I left my friends behind. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. I'm so embarrassed. Is there a way to
No, why
wait?
do you do this? Like, seriously, this is normal. This is kids. This is what I'm here for. We love this.
I'm gonna tell you why. What's happening right now? My headphones, my other device is Bluetooth connected
Mhm.
to my mixer board.
Mhm.
So my son is playing on my other device, and I hear his game in my ears right now. So
Oh, we don't
give
hear
me.
that. Okay.
You don't hear it, but I hear it. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
distracting,
Go
and I'm so
ahead.
not planned for him to be using. Let me just turn off his Bluetooth so I don't hear it in my
I
headphones.
love your son. Can I just say?
Sorry about that. Sorry. Give me a second.
Oh my gosh. See, this is what I mean. When you just like, I love it. I just hate when people are so perfectly clean and everything is perfect. I don't like it. I love this. We're here for that. This is real life, y'all. And I'm not going to edit it. I love it. Every bit of it. Well, I can take this opportunity and actually shout out Isa or Isa Q. I don't know how to say your name. Thank you so much for your amazing and very encouraging message. So,
All right. I was
there
able to.
you are.
Yeah, I was not planning that. I was like, you know what? There's no way he's gonna use my other phone, but he found it and he was on it.
I just love it. It's amazing. No, we're here for that. I said I'm not gonna edit it because I love it. I really do. I just hate these perfect. We have this, all the time when we do like, corporate media and all of that. I just love these very normal,
Real
everyday life struggles.
exactly. But no, I didn't forget your question. So let me answer your question. So you
Wow.
asked
I forgot.
no, so you asked me that I resent my parents for
Oh yeah,
they,
yeah.
I did, but not for the reasons you might think. So the reasons I resented it because um back in the 2000s, it's not like today. We're not really connected with the internet. So once you leave, you lose touch with everybody, right? And I didn't want to leave my friends behind. So it's like, you take your kid out of like an environment that he's used to with growing up with these kids. And I was about to go into high school. So
Mhm.
that those were the reasons. But then yes, the occupation was like an add-on to it. I also was like, hey, I was free in America. I can come and go. I didn't have to be searched every single, couple of miles. So those things added on as well. But it wasn't just the occupation. It was just more of just being a kid and being a brat, really.
Okay, okay, okay. I see. So normal teenage thing.
Yeah.
But
No, yep.
how did you experience the Intifada that came really almost right away after you guys moved there?
So it's interesting because I had an uncle. So for the first 3 months, right? So the Intifada happened in late September 2000. We went there in June of 2000, mid June. So for that whole summer, I had an uncle that was taking us around, showing us, all around Palestine and even occupied Palestine in the Israeli side of things. And it's like, hey, look, isn't this nice? Like you keep talking about how beautiful America is, but look how beautiful our country is. I'm like, yeah, you know what? He's right. There is a lot of nice things here. I can see myself living here. And then 3 months later, all hell broke loose. And it was like, what are we doing here? But my parents, they were very determined for us to live there and to experience the culture and to appreciate where we come from because their fear was they didn't want us to become too Americanized and not have that connection with our homeland.
Totally.
And they definitely did the right thing because here I am like 14, well, no, what am I talking 14? 24 years later, right? I'm still connected. I still go back and forth. I built my own house there. My kids have visited Palestine twice, so they did the right thing. Because if they never took me there, who knows? I probably would have been like, I probably still would have been an advocate, but I probably wouldn't have been so connected with the land.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And I think it's very important for us, people who are from different countries, to stay connected to our culture, our belief, and our faith and everything. But so the Intifada, you guys left when it started, or you stayed there?
No, we stayed there. We didn't go anywhere. So actually, what's crazy too is my mom was in the hospital giving birth to my sister when the Intifada happened,
Oh
when
gosh.
when Sharon went into Al Quds, and she was stuck there for, I forgot, like a week or two maybe.
Mhm.
Um, she wasn't even able to do my sister's paperwork because like a lot of institutions kind of like shut down because of it. So
Mhm.
my sister for a month didn't even have a name. We named it, we called it whatever we wanted to, until like a month later, we finally settled on a name, and then she finally was able to have an official, birth certificate.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a crazy time. It was a scary time too, because it's like you don't know what to expect. And my parents, they weren't gonna turn back. Like they knew, like, hey, listen, we're here for the long haul. We're not gonna let this deter us from living here.
And so what was then, if the Intifada was not the reason to leave, what was the reason to go back to the US, if you
So
don't mind me asking?
yeah, I know. So the reason, there was a few reasons. One, was mainly education. So like once my siblings and once we got older and we were entering university, that was like the main reason.
Mm.
Uh, and it was my parents, like to them, it was like mission complete. The mission for them was, we want to raise our kids there, right? Especially during their teenage years. That was their main goal. So they achieved it, because most not just Palestinians, most just foreign parents come to America with this idea of, we're going to come to America, we're going to work, we're going to save our money, we're going to build a home, and we're going to go back, right? Like that's a lot of people's goal. And,
Absolutely.
and a lot of people don't actually achieve that goal. But my dad did. He came, he built his home, and he sent us over there. Unfortunately, he couldn't live with us, but he would come back and forth and visit. But then again, like as we all got older and started getting married, we kind of left. But we know we didn't leave for good. Like we always go back and forth. And like I said, I already built a home there, and I actually was planning on going back to live there this summer. But obviously, with what's going on now, it's a little bit more complicated than the Intifada, to be honest with you.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Um, I just find it, I have a friend, and he told me as well. He said he was there. He came there as well. He moved from here to there right before the second Intifada, and he said that also connected him very much so with Palestine. Um, and to me, the question is, what is the fear factor, especially for a teenage boy?
Well, because we're a target, right? And
Yeah.
the reality is, um, and you know this, they can say anything and get away with it, right? Like they can say that, he was inciting violence, or
Yeah.
he threw a rock or whatever, and who's to stop them? And we've noted, and like it's been well documented that they can get away with anything. They killed a journalist, Shireen Abakla,
Yeah.
and she's an American journalist, and nothing happened. So I think there was a fear of that for my parents, and for me as well. My sons my oldest is about to be a teenager. He'll be a teenager next month. So there's a fear of like, will they detain him? And if they do detain him, he has no right to an attorney. We're dealing with
Yes.
military law here, right? So and they're allowed to do this every 6 months. They're allowed to renew your sentence for
Yes.
nothing,
Yes.
crime. So this is the type of people we're dealing with. And but again, I mean, with that said, I still have dreams, and I still have a plan of bringing my kids back there, and to experience what it's like to because here's the thing. Yes, there's occupation, but once we're in our village and we're with our family, and we're able to enjoy our culture, that's the reason we're there. Like there's nothing like being around, your elders, or going to a wedding or spending time with your family. Um, it's a sacrifice I'm willing to take to spend time with my loved ones over there.
I love that.
Yeah.
When you think about now, since October 7th, how many people finally woken up, and a lot of people are really saying it the right way. We're not free in Palestine. Palestine is free in the world. How does it feel like being there and nobody actually really cared except people who knew and some of the so-called nonprofits who tried to help over the years, but now pretty much look at the college campuses. It's elevating.
It is. Here's one thing that here's one teenager when I lived there. Uh, I felt I felt very isolated from the world. Right, there was no social media back then to get your voice out, and the only thing we had was the media, and we know even to this day what side the media is on. So I got to experience what propaganda was firsthand without even knowing what the word was or what it meant. But I got to experience it and live through it. And the odd thing is I had a satellite dish, and the one channel that I was able to receive that was a news station from America was Fox News. And if that is not the most biased news organization out there, I don't know what is. So I was watching that and I was like, wow. So this is what America thinks is happening, but they have no clue what life is like on the ground. So now to be able to live, fast forward 24 years later, it's an amazing thing to see the world finally waking up, because the biggest tool that Zionists have is relying on people's ignorance and not knowing what's happening. And to touch on your point about the students in the universities, they can't use this excuse that, well, this is nuance and you have to be educated. And, we're talking about some of the most educated kids in the world. These are Ivy League schools protesting. So they know what's going on. You can't use that excuse on them. These are well-informed kids and they're trying to silence them, but it's not working.
Did you ever hoped or dare to hope that it would become like this?
Um, I I'll be honest. I honestly didn't think so.
Me
Like
neither.
to be honest with you, no. I legitimately thought that not in my lifetime, at least. I thought maybe in my children's lifetime, possibly, but I didn't think that I would witness this today and to see the world waking up. And I think this is just a starting point. Like I think we still have a long way ahead. But I'm fine with that. You know what I mean? This is we have to lay the groundwork so that the future generation could build upon it. So even if I don't see a free Palestine in my lifetime, the fact that eventually it will happen, that's okay with me. That's fine with me.
How much of education about Palestine goes into your day to day when it comes to your children, especially to the oldest child? You said he's a teenager, right?
He's a teenager. Well, he's about to
Mhm.
be next to be a teenager. Yeah.
Okay, he's about to be. So, how much do you teach him or tell him or them?
I'll be honest with you. So I used to have this was my outlook before. And unfortunately I had this outlook. I'm glad I finally changed the way I look at how I view things.
Mhm.
I think I had more of like this shelter mentality, like I'm gonna wait till they get a little bit older because it is a bit nuanced. It's hard to explain, like, hey, there's a difference between Zionism and Judaism, and like how do you explain this to a little one? And I was like, I'll wait till they're a bit older. And then I had this new thought popped in my head. I was like, hey, what am I doing? Like, we need to talk to them as young as possible. Like even my 4-year-old now, he knows about Palestine. If he sees a Palestinian
Oh.
flag, he'll say, "Oh, Dad, look, Palestine, free Palestine." So like now, it's the seed is planted at a young age. So that's one of the reasons I wrote my book, was because we should have this discussions with our young ones. You don't have to be an adult to have this conversation. So I had a one-on-one conversation with my kids, and to be honest, it wasn't even that long ago. I mean, it was probably about 4 or 5 months ago when I sat down with my oldest and like really laid it out. He understood a little bit, but I felt like he's old enough now where we can get in depth and explain it and in a way where he'll understand it. And the book that I wrote, it doesn't explain exactly what's going on. I'm not sure if you had the chance to read it yet, but it it walks you through this little girl's life, right? And it helps if a parent is reading it with their child, the kid is going to have a bunch of questions to ask, like, why did they have to leave their home, right? Why don't they have food, water, and electricity? What is an apartheid? Why did she refer herself as a refugee? And there's a in the back of the book, there's a what do you call it? A glossary of words that helps you break it down and explain to them what's happening, because it's a discussion we need to have, because we don't know what our kids are going to grow up to be. Like, our kids might be the ones to actually make a change, right? Like, everyone says, my kid might be the next president. Yeah, your kid might be the next president. We don't know who's going to be the one that's going to make a change. So it's best to plant the seed at a young age.
Absolutely agreed. Great segue with your book. Now, why did it have to be a girl? Why not from a boy's perspective, which is much closer to you?
That's a good question. And it's funny, I don't even have any daughters. that's
even worse. Or maybe that is the reason. I don't know.
For real. Well, I mean, that is a really good question, honestly. So, by the way, here's the book. So,
Yep.
so her name is, right? Emma is a girl's name. It means hope.
Yes.
That's the name of the girl. And again, remember I told you a friend of mine, he's the one who had the idea of it being a little girl and naming her Emel. And I said, you know what? I love that. And I can build upon that. And there is another book I'm working on. It's going to be about a boy growing up in the West Bank, but it's women, like girls are near and dear to us. I have nieces, right? So I can't, as a man, I feel very protective of them. And of course I'm protective of my sons, but I think it's a whole nother story when it comes to a little girl, you know what I'm saying? And, the sincerity that, hearing a girl speak and knowing that, she just wants to live her life and grow up just like any other girl around the world.
Can you show the drawing in the book?
Yeah, I can do that.
Can you hold it into the camera? That would be great. And I want you to know that obviously we need a part 2 of Ahmad's story and a part 3. We need to know when Amal is a little bit older and how she experienced the whole world, standing up for Palestine finally and standing up for little girls like her.
Exactly. And another reason is they think that we're not going to hear what our women have to say, our little girls have to say. The first Intifada was mainly led by women, by the way, and it was a very peaceful movement. And it was all about boycotting Israeli goods. And, so women play a huge role in helping liberate Palestine. So, yeah, and my illustrator, you know what, I'm going to give you a little backstory to this book as well. Let me get to the last page. I want to show you. So here's another beautiful page of her and her mother. I want to get to the final page. So so as I do that, this is the same illustrator I hired for my first book. And she did such an amazing job that obviously I was going to hire for my second book. However, the powers that be try to prevent that from happening. Are you familiar with Fiverr.com?
Yes, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. So Fiverr, I was unaware that they were on the BDS list.
Me neither, until recently.
Yes, I had no clue. So I reached out to her and I told her, like, hey, this is the final page. I wanted to show this page. So
absolutely.
I wanted it to be known that, as you can see, this is not just a Muslim thing, it's a Christian thing as well. So there's a Christmas tree, because most people think that only Muslims are being persecuted, when in reality, this is not a religious thing. This has everything to do with colonialism, ethnic cleansing, and occupation. So I wanted to make that very clear.
Absolutely.
And so in regards to the story of this book, so I reached out to my illustrator and I asked her, said, hey, listen, I want to do this book. And she was so down for it. And she also gave me a discount as well, which was great. So once I hired her, she started working on it. It was less than 2 weeks. And then I get an email from Fiverr saying, saying, hey, you broke our guidelines, so we're going to ban you, pretty much. And they banned me, and I couldn't understand why. I did nothing wrong. I started doing a little bit of digging, and it turns out the owners of Fiverr are based in Tel Aviv. They're an Israeli company, so they try to silence us. They don't want the word to get out there. But my illustrator, she's such an amazing person, where she actually found me, looked up my book publishing company name, and then she reached out to me on WhatsApp. We got connected through there, and we were able to make it happen. And I was able to save money too, because I didn't have to pay all those Fiverr fees. So thank you, Fiverr, for canceling.
Okay, but just a quick side note, because obviously the boycott list is long and people sometimes don't know. So if you guys were not aware, yes, Fiverr is on the BDS list. Do you have an alternative idea for people?
You know what? I looked it up. I honestly don't remember the name of the companies. Just it's a simple. If you did a simple Google search and you just typed in Fiverr.com alternatives, they'll give you. There's a bunch of them. Yeah, there's a bunch, but Fiverr, they are a good like freelance website. If they happen, it just sucks that they're Zionist.
Totally.
But yeah, but what are you gonna do? I mean,
but let me ask you this: was your illustrator Palestinian as well?
No, she was not. She's actually from Venezuela, and she actually gave me a gift, and her gift to me was a Spanish translation of my book. So Beautiful. I'm gonna also publish it in Spanish as well. So.
And did you have to do like when she understood what you wanted from her, and was she aware of the Palestinian struggle or not really?
She seemed to be aware. Okay. She was on board immediately, and I didn't feel like I had to explain anything to her. And we would she would message me and say, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think? So she had her own input. So she was well aware of what was going on. I didn't have to explain anything to her. And she would even tell me like, hey, I drew this up, and she would have second thoughts. She was like, you know what? This is a kid's book. Like there was one image where she had like, it was like a military presence. Like you see soldiers and stuff. And she was like, you know what? That might be too much. I was like, yeah, you're right. So I gave her a lot of liberty, and I let her give me her input as well. And she did an amazing job.
How was the book received in your environment by kids, by parents, by people who knew you generally?
So I've had a lot of DMs from teachers telling me, thank you for this book, because they wanted to talk about it with their students, but they didn't know how to approach it. I've had parents message me telling me that their kids took it to school for a show and tell. And I thought that was amazing. And they were able to, and I had one kid actually, it's my brother's, so my sister-in-law's nephew. Okay. Mm-hmm. I never met this kid, but he loves the book, and he's so happy that he can see himself in this book and see a Palestinian kid, because it's so important to have like representation. And he was shocked to know that I'm related to him, and I'm married, but he was happy to know this. Like my brother was with him, and he told him, he says, you know what? I know the author. He's like, really? And he called me, he FaceTimed me, and it was so cute, because the kid is like, he thinks I'm like this super famous author. I'm like, no. I'm like, I played along with it, right? He's over asking me, do I have millions of dollars? I'm like, no. I'm just a regular person who wrote a book, but he's excited because, it's such a big deal to him and to other kids his age, because they get to see themselves, not even just a kid, and me as well, because you need to see that you can grow up and do something that you thought you couldn't obtain, because you don't see that representation. You know what I'm saying? So that meant a lot to me when he called me.
Well, obviously, I knew a thing or two about you already, so I'm just gonna make it real awkward now. How did you discover your writing skills, your talent?
So here's the little backstory to that. So I used to be a rapper when I was younger, So to me, rhyming it comes easy to me. And that's where it started. I used to, back in the day, I used to release, there's only like one video of me still floating around, but all my old stuff from like the early to mid 2000s are pretty much wiped off the internet because MySpace doesn't exist anymore. But yeah, so I used to rap. And then also my grandfather was a famous poet as well. Um, so his name is Imhadib Deeb. So if you look him up on YouTube, you can still find his work. He used to play this instrument called the rababa. It's like a violin. And he would just sing some folk tales and some current events or, anything that's going around currently. And he would do like a masterful job of just making it rhyme. And it just came so effortless. I think it looked more effortless on his end than my end, to be honest with you.
Wait, wait, wait. Is the rababa like a oud?
It's so to describe it to you, it's like they use the horsehair. So
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
string of the horsehair, and it's like this bow that's also horsehair as well. And he just the friction of it makes a really nice
Yeah.
soothing sound, and that's what he plays.
I love that.
Yeah.
So you say, I trust the internet. I mean, it's the internet that we're talking to. Somebody will find that one video that's floating.
Yeah.
And then you lost the passion for rapping, or?
Not necessarily lost the passion for it. It was just, I'll be honest with you, I didn't like the environment of it. So I um I did a few shows,
Mm,
and a lot of them, there's drinking going on and there's smoke. I just like, Islamically speaking, I just didn't like the vibe of it. So that's why I walked away from it. It wasn't that I didn't like rapping in general. I just didn't like the culture that surrounded rap music. And then started working and raising my family. This is something that I'm just not really going to pursue anymore. One of those
yeah,
type of things.
yeah.
So
Okay. Let's get straight into your first book, actually, because I find this very interesting. So give me the name again, the title.
it's uh it's Generation Tech in the Four Seasons. So this book, uh, and not I already mentioned why I wrote the book and
Mm-hmm,
everything,
mm-hmm.
but the reason I got into writing a children's book was so most people don't know this, but I'm a wrestling fan, like WWE wrestling,
Yep.
and I was watching Monday Night Raw, and there was a commercial of a wrestler promoting his children's book, and he was reading it, and and it was rhyming, and I was like, I can do that. Like as I was watching him read his book, and he was showing the illustrations, I was like, you know what? I never thought about it before, but I want to write a children's book. So that's how I got the idea from watching that commercial, and then I immediately started working on my book, and then I published it. Like it was like a domino effect.
So when and this is really true, like like I feel like growing up, our parents had to literally force us to come in. These kids, you gotta force them, and you can't even force them to go out. It's so crazy.
It's I cannot tell you how exhausting it is. Listen, I love my kids and I love playing with my kids, but I also would like them to sometimes play by themselves and go outside without me being the one to orchestrate everything and say, okay, guys, let's get our bikes. Okay, guys, let's play basketball. Like I have to be the one to like push them. But I have to say though, this is very recently. There's some new kids that I live in like a very elderly neighborhood. So there's not too many kids around. So there's a new family that moved in, and to see my kids go outside and play without me telling them to, it was like very nostalgic for me. And it was like I can see myself in them like going out and playing. And yeah, so I'm now finally they're actually going outside and playing without me pushing them to do it.
I love the sound of kids playing outside. I don't know, like I miss it a lot when it doesn't really happen so much like it used to be, where there were always kids playing outside. So I think it's a shame that this generation of kids are missing out on a lot of stuff, a lot of good experience.
They are, and I'm just like you. When I see a kid riding a bike or something, or not just a kid, a group of kids, like three or
Yeah.
four, I'm like, good for them, man. Like honestly, good for them. And it's kind of sad. Like I would watch old movies with my kids, and one of my kids was like, Daddy, was it like this? Were you guys like going outside and like exploring and building things and doing? I'm like, yes, it was exactly like this. Um, because we're like helicopter parents, right? We're always watching our kids like a hawk. So it's so foreign to them to think that kids can actually go out without, parent supervision. You know what I mean? But we lived in a different time though. It was a different world back then. It wasn't as scary as today.
But do you think, and this is obviously the question that always comes when this topic is being talked about. So do you think this is just because of social media that we're so aware? Because I think like crime was happening before, kids were kidnapped and everything was pretty much there. Do you think it's worse, or is it just that we know of more things happening because of social media?
So there's data on this. There's actually less crime today than it was back then. So it's
Wow.
not more dangerous. The thing is this, you just nailed it. We're just much more hyper aware of our surroundings and what's going on because we just have more access to information. When back then our information was limited, right? And then also, if you weren't seeking it, let's say if you weren't sitting down watching your local news or reading the paper, and you were just going about, just working or just going to school, you weren't really paying attention to these things. Now you have no choice. If you pull out your phone or you're scrolling, you're going to read some articles, you're going to see some videos, and us like our millennial generation, we grew up with the internet. We're much more well informed, so we're just aware. We're just hyper aware. That's all it is.
That's crazy that there was more crime before than now. I wouldn't have thought so. I thought the people are really getting more narcissistic, more sociopathic, and I don't know, like
Well,
it's interesting.
keep in mind, I think it also goes hand in hand because we're more aware, right? So we're more aware of our surrounding. Less kids are being, more kids now are being supervised, right? So it's not that window of opportunity for crimes to be committed has shrunk pretty much too. And
Yeah.
I think that plays a huge factor as well. But I look again, I love when my kids go outside and play, but they're gonna play outside of my house. I'm not letting them roam the streets. I'm not letting them go to the park or go to the store by themselves. That's not gonna happen.
Absolutely not. I know what you mean. Totally. And I feel like kids are getting lazier as well, though, if I can say, because there is a lot of, hanging around at home devices, whether it's a PlayStation, Xbox, phones, iPads, whatever. So,
Very true. Very true. And this is their comfort zone too, right? Like they're used to being home and playing on their devices. When I was a kid, even if I had a device, let's say I had a portable device, well, the battery died. Now what? I can't just go charge it up like today. The kids just charge it up immediately. If my battery died, I'll go do something else. Or I played a game. I'm tired of this game. I'm not interacting online with my friends. I need to go outside and see my friends. So it's just a different world. It really is.
very true. And sometimes I really hate it. I really, really hate it when there constantly is a phone in their hand. They're not even living an experience in the moment because it's always that they're looking at a video or making a video.
I talked to my wife about this once. We were out somewhere and my son was crying. And I was like, you know what? Let's not let him cry. Like, let him deal with his emotion and figure it out. Like, we shouldn't just immediately try to pacify them and like give them something to make them be quiet. No, let them go through the range of motion, cry, be upset, and then
Yeah,
just get over it on your own. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So,
totally.
like,
Do,
yeah.
do you ever like are you planning to ever write a book for adults and not necessarily children?
Yes, I've thought about writing another book. So the book that I was thinking about writing is,
Don't give it
and
away.
it's going to be about Palestine as well because
I
it's my
love it.
passion, and it's going to be, without getting into too much detail, I want to write a book that guides you through all of the events that led us up to this point and to debunk all these Zionist talking points as well, right? Because a lot of their talking points are very simple to debunk, but you just need to have the knowledge and the information in order to do so, because there's a lot of people out there that side with Palestine, they side with the humanity, but they just don't have the information to back up their feelings, right? Because and sometimes a Zionist would like, would attack these people like, oh, then why you really support Palestine? And then they'll start saying all these things, and the person unfortunately can't really articulate it because they don't have the information, all of
Yeah.
the information. So that's why I'm hoping to like do kind of like this like crash course book that touches on all the main points, and anyone that picks it up can walk away and like have a better understanding on what's going on.
Did you experience any resistance, especially since October 7th, when you talk about your books, when you try to either promote your books or, basically raise awareness?
Yes, and believe it or not, it's actually from loved ones, which is crazy. Um, because especially my the elderly people of my family,
Community, yeah.
they look at it like this. They look at it because their mindset is different. They came to America and they just want to lay low, right? They don't want to make waves. They just want to make, raise their kids, you know, pay off their mortgage and just live a good life and visit back and forth in Palestine without being harassed at the border, right?
Mm.
Best way to harass at the border is to make waves. It is to raise awareness. And I have a lot of family members. They're like, "Hey, aren't you worried that your name might be on a list and you might not be able to enter Palestine anymore?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's on my mind. I'm not gonna lie and say no, it isn't. Especially because my name is on this thing. I'm not using some sort of alternative name. So I think about it, but then I tell myself it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Like that's where I'm at right now. I'm like, it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make because in the end of the day, I'm a privileged individual who lives in America. I'm never gonna go without, right? I'm never gonna sit here and, you know, beg for food or, worry about my, losing my job or losing my home. These are things I can always. I feel like these things are in my hands here in
Mhm.
America.
Mhm.
Can't control what's going on over there and what's going on their borders, but it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make.
Did you feel like I don't know how it was for you, especially I think I mean it's always for somebody who is not from the Western world. I think every foreigner experiences this, but it might be a little bit more for especially someone who's Palestinian. When growing up also in America, did you feel that you were different or treated differently when you told people that you were Palestinian?
Um, yes and no. So I grew up in a very diverse city.
Hmm.
So a lot of people were aware of what an Arab is or what a Palestinian is. So so there was that side of it. But then there was the side of like, I'll give you an example. Like I remember I was in fourth grade and we had like this assignment where you had to like, you know, tell the class where you're from and bring in a flag and do all, show your culture. And my teacher at the time told me like, "Oh dear, there's no such thing as Palestine." And she gave me a Jordanian flag instead of a Palestinian flag. And that was like an eye opener for me as like a 9-year old. Like, wait a minute, so I'm a little bit different. What's going on in my country is not the same as the rest of the world, and this is a very unique struggle that I have versus everybody else. So that always stuck with me. Like that, even to this day, that stuck with me. Like, you know, I'm being treated differently because of where I'm from. You know what I'm saying? Or but now, as an adult, I'm able to articulate what happened to my people and why we're in this predicament that we are in now. But back then, I just didn't understand it. Like I couldn't understand why don't I have my own country just like everybody else.
Yeah, this is I don't even know what to say to this seriously. But
Yeah.
I'm very happy to hear that teachers receive this book so well. And obviously I heard you say that prior, and I wanted to make a point of saying this here because it's actually really interesting. One of my nieces came to me recently and she goes, "You don't even understand what they said to us at school today." I'm like, "What did they understand?" She goes, "Oh, we're learning about the German Second World War and the history of the Jews." And then the teacher drew he thought it was a similarity. He goes like, yeah, it's the same like the Palestinians. They feel suffocated by the Jews, so they're like kicking them out right now. And I'm like, what?
No, yeah, but but these are the tactics that they use, right? And here's the thing: in America, especially here in America, every history lesson we have, I don't care whether it's from kindergarten to senior in high school, we're always being taught about World War II. Always,
Yeah,
always, always, always. So Americans sympathize really with the plight of the Jewish people, as they should, right? Like
rightfully,
this,
yeah.
rightfully so. Like this is a tragic event, and this should never happen again. But it shouldn't just not never happen again to one group of people. It should never happen to anybody. Like
Absolutely.
that should just be a blanket statement, and we should have a safe world for the Jews and for everybody, and for that matter. Like this idea of like there is no other safe place except this one plot of land for one group of people. Like no, the whole world should be a safe place for every group of people. And we have laws in place and international laws in place in order for this to be a reality. So it's a silly argument, and we have nothing against the people in Palestine, occupied Palestine, for being Jewish. It has everything to do with their actions. They could have been a Muslim nation. If Saudi Arabia would have come and invade Palestine and occupy the land and ethnically cleanse us, we would resist them the exact same way. We don't care that they're Muslims. It has nothing to do with their faith. This has nothing to do with religion. It has everything to do with their actions.
What was the biggest lesson you learned, if there is any, or what was the biggest thing that you take with you post October 7th?
The biggest lesson that I walked away from,
Yeah, or what was that something that happened since then that stuck with you, where you say, okay, this is my little situation that, means something to me or changed something within me, something like that.
well, I'll tell you what, and that's a good question because, like I said, I've advocated for Palestine like my whole life, right? But it was always like a touch and go thing, right? If something flared up in the Middle East, I'll talk about it, I'll post about it, and then I'll go back to my daily life, right? Like and I think that's the case for most people. I think what makes it different now is there is no going back to pre-October 7th life. There is no more, go back to daily living and pretend like, you know, we're occupied. There's nothing we really can do about it. No, it's an everyday thing now, and it's more of a lifestyle thing now to always talk about Palestine. It's not just, here we are 7 months in, 8 months in. Even if it stopped today, um, I'm not going to forget about those children and the innocent people who lost their lives. Like the Palestinian blood is not cheap. Like we're not going to sit here and say, well, thank you so much for stopping the genocide. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. Let's give them a pat on the back for doing that. Like no, now it's time for you to pay for what you did. We should take these people to international court. They should pay for their crimes against humanity, and we're going to keep speaking out because what happened in Palestine should never happen in the first place, and it should never happen anywhere else in the world.
I agree with you 10,000%. And I couldn't say it any better. And I just really want to thank you for making time for us and really coming here, speaking about your book, speaking about basically everything. You answered all of my questions, and I could not make it awkward for you, even though I mentioned your rap career.
No, 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 you're good. I appreciate it. Had fun, and you had really good questions, and I enjoyed my time on your show, and I look forward to doing it again. And just I'm gonna do a quick plug in the end for where they can purchase the book, by the way. So go
Tell
ahead.
them where, but we're going to have them in the show notes so people can click the link directly. So don't worry, guys. If you are not quick enough to write this down, it will be in the show notes.
Thank you. So yeah, so if you visit my website, foursonspublishing.com, that's FOURSONS publishing.com. You could buy through there if you're in the West. Unfortunately, if you're outside of the States, the only other company you can go to is Amazon because they're the only ones who can actually ship it internationally. And you can look up Holding On to Hope and you'll find it on there as well. And yeah, I appreciate you guys. And by the way, all of the net proceeds are being donated to different causes in Gaza. The first organization I worked with was Gaza Health. They provided telemedicine. The second organization I worked with is Operation Olive Branch, which assists people with leaving Gaza for whatever reason. And they also work with doctors who are on the ground that are providing, you know, any necessities that they would need, whether it's food, water, medicine. So yeah, those are two great organizations. And I plan on working with more, but those are the two that I'm currently working with.
Absolutely. I love that. Thank you so much. I'm really, really happy that you was here and you shared everything with us. And I hope you guys go and purchase the book. If you're not somebody who reads, then give it to somebody. Matter of fact, purchase two books and give them to two somebodies. And it's going to a good cause. You see, like he's not even keeping the money. Like he's not even worried about the money. So it's going to Palestine. So make sure to cop the book. For all the audience outside the States, you heard it, Amazon it is, unfortunately, but it's better than nothing. And that's what we're stuck with for now. And once again, hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I will be back next week with a brand new one. Peace out.